Hey guys, welcome back to NFL Trading Room. We're jumping right back into the summer scouting breakdowns. Today we have a very special episode, not just because we have an amazing guest in my guy, Parker Blake, a legendary O-line coach out there. We do a ton of stuff together. Just started our new Substack, Scout the Shadows. Go check that out. I'm sure he'll plug all his stuff at the end of this too, but just a quick brief introduction. But also, this is going to be a really fun episode because, I think all three of us would consider ourselves O-line guys. We really all love to watch, dig into the O-line tape, and we're breaking down the offensive tackles today. And I think me and Ben, so far in all our episodes we've done, we've kind of just agreed on everything. It hasn't been very good content in terms of like conflict. We haven't had anything to really debate or argue about. We do today. Our entire lists are basically flipped. We have very, very little overlap in our lists. Parker is always ass backwards on consensus, so I'm sure he's got some hot takes to throw in here today. But it's gonna be a fun episode. We got very, very different lists. We're kind of short on honorable mentions today because somebody's in everybody's top five. We've only got like two that were guys we wanted to mention that aren't in somebody's top five, so we'll run through those before we jump in. But yeah, we got a really fun episode. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Offensive tackle is my favorite position to watch. It has been for a long time. And I can't wait to get into these guys.
There we go. Parker, how we doing?
Hey man, when I get to hop on and I get to talk offensive line with my man Drew, it's always a great day. I'm excited to watch too. I just kind of give other opinions. I haven't really bounced my board off anybody outside of you, I think. So I'm interested to see where I land, and then kind of hear your takes. I know there's a few of these guys in this class already that I'm interested to see what their development looks like from last year to this season. I know one of them we're going to talk about pretty early, so I'm excited to just hear what you guys have to say. It's always fun to talk about the big boys.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So I guess without further ado, we'll jump right into our honorable mentions. Like I said, we only have two today because we got a lot of difference in our top fives. But I think first up, we're going to mention the offensive tackle out of Florida, Austin Barber. He's a fun one. There's this guy I noticed watching Crenshaw Dixon last year. Florida's got a fun offensive line. They had a great one last year between Crenshaw Dixon and Barber, and then Slaughter, another guy we'll talk about whenever we get to interior guys. He's going to be a really fun one to talk about. But yeah, Barber, he's currently my OT 7, so like one of the first two out. He really, we mentioned this right before we came on, he's just like really average at everything. He's straight middle of the road across everything. I thought the anchor was pretty good. You didn't see him lose power a lot. I thought he had a good matchup against Michael Williams. I thought Jalen Walker got the best from him a couple times. Michael Williams, he held up pretty solid. Not the best athlete in the world, but again, not a guy you have to work. I think he's good enough to stay on the outside. I didn't see him lose the corner a lot. The range was pretty good. The hands were kind of the same thing, where like I don't think they're anything to write home about, but I wouldn't necessarily call them an issue. It's a really kind of boring eval to me because I think he's just a very middle of the road player, not a lot of strengths to write home about, but also not a lot of glaring weaknesses. So I think he's a guy that shakes out probably as an early day 3 guy to me right now. That's just kind of where those guys fit in for me. But kind of a boring summary right there. I'll kick it over to Ben. What you've seen from him?
Yeah, I really liked Austin Barber. It's kind of the same thing like you said, pretty average to slightly above average at really everything. But I think that as a collective is something that can be a really good prospect. I had a early third round grade on him, which kind of describes that average offensive tackle prospect. I thought he was a pretty good down blocker from what I saw. Florida didn't run a ton of power from the games I watched, but I thought he was pretty good at that. Like we mentioned before the pod, he's not like a very powerful run blocker, but I thought he got to his landmarks pretty effectively. And I thought the hand technique in pass pro was pretty good. I think it could use some refinement in the run game. But I think he's a guy that's got a really high floor. I think he understands the position very well. And I'm excited to see what he does in 2025.
Yeah, for sure. And Parker, I know you haven't jumped into a ton of his, but what you've seen just peripherally from watching them, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see Barber. I hope he's a Senior Bowl guy because I'd love to see him get some like true reps as a guard. I think he can be a guy that can really develop into like a journeyman style guard that ends up being just a very solid presence for maybe even some of these more higher turnover groups. But as a tackle, I think the biggest issue I saw was just I don't love the anchor. I don't love the play strength off the ball. I would just love to see him move guys more. But I think that again the consistency in play is something that I love. Always gets me excited about prospects, even if it is boring to watch. So if he can just again maintain that level of play and just stay on top of it, I think the third round's a great spot to grab a guy like that. I think it's a great place to put him right now. Just because it's a guy you don't want to really fall into day 3. You think he'll get scooped up early on day 3, but you want to go get a guy like that in the third round and get him on your roster.
Yeah, for sure. Then kicking into our next honorable mention, or our last one, I guess, because we're kind of shorter on that today. It's going to be Drew Shelton, the offensive tackle out of Penn State. But Shelton's a guy that's kind of got a lot of hype throughout the early stages of this summer scouting group. Like I've heard a lot of top 50 talk with him. People are really, really high on him. I know like the Notre Dame game was as soon as they finished that playoff game, people were when I heard the hype start around him. And I didn't quite get there. Like I liked him. He's my current OT6. So like I think he's my first one out. He's going to grade out relatively high for me, but I can't quite get on the top 50 train with him. To me, the biggest issue was the play strength. He's just a guy that really, really lacks anchor. I think he lets guys win the leverage battle on him a lot. I saw him get long armed pretty routinely. I worry about the length a little bit. I think, he just lets guys into his frame way too easily. The anchor was a pretty consistent concern with me. I thought he got collapsed into the QB's lap again on a pretty consistent basis. But he is a very good athlete. At least if you're going to have the power concerns and the play strength concerns that I do have with him, he is at least athletic and rangy enough to make up for it. I thought the foot speed was really something to write home about. Again, I didn't see him give up the corner ever. The hand usage was also really impressive. He had one of the best snatch traps of this group that I watched. That was a really consistent thing he flashed on his tape. So I really, I was impressed with how technically advanced the hands were. I thought the technique, especially in pass pro, was really good. Again, not anything to write home about as a run blocker. I don't think not a great mover off the line of scrimmage. But again, the hand usage and pass protection was really impressive. Very, very rangy. So if he can add some weight to his frame, get that play strength up a little bit, get him in the squat rack, maybe you can kind of mitigate the anchor concerns and build a little bit of power in his game. So I think there's a ceiling there. But the play strength is probably my biggest concern with him right now. Ben, I don't know what you saw from him.
Yeah, Drew Shelton was a guy that I wasn't even going to watch at first because I just had that image of Elijah Roberts forklifting him burned in my brain. So I just thought, okay, this is a guy that has no anchor. But then I gave him a watch, and I liked him more than I thought I would. Like you said, the anchor, it's got to get better. But I did like a lot of what I saw in pass protection. He has got a really good snatch trap, like you said. I thought, especially against Notre Dame, he broke out a one-arm stab move that was stunning to a lot of Notre Dame's edge rushers, which I thought was pretty nice. But like you said, in the run game, I think he falls off blocks way too easily. I've got him as OT8, so kind of in that same ballpark as an early fourth-round grade. But yeah, I did like a lot of what I saw in the pass protection, and he is a good athlete, so we'll see what steps he takes this season.
Yeah, for sure. And then Parker, I don't know what you wanted to add to that discussion.
No, for sure. I mean, you guys have covered most of it. I think, it's fun that you have him and Barber as the honorable mentions. I think they're very, they kind of show the two different styles of tackle, in my opinion, where they're very similar body sizes. Barber's obviously a little taller, a little heavier right now, but you have a guy that's more power focused, even though he doesn't have great play strength. He's more just stout and consistent. And then you have a guy in Shelton where he has that ranginess, he has that foot speed, he has that athleticism, but you do see him be even worse in play strength issues than a guy like Barber is. And so watching him develop, again, that lower half, or even if it is just running his feet through contact and winning the leverage battle a little bit more in protection, but he's got to clean something up just to help address power. I'm not as worried about him in the run game. I think he can get it done. Just with that athleticism helps open up a lot of options for him. But just another guy who I'm interested to see what kind of jump he's going to take from last year to this year, because I feel like the ceiling's still pretty good for him. I feel like he still has a lot of room to wiggle into before he's out of college. But I'm interested to see if they're going to maximize that or just kind of let him keep doing him.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, yeah, again, like I mentioned, kind of shorter on honorable mentions today because we have 3 top 5s to get through, 3 very different top 5s to get into. And I guess without further ado, we'll jump straight into our guest. We'll kick off with your number 5s. I think we have 3 different number 5s. And Parker, I'll let you kick off with the beginning of your list.
I know I gotta make sure I pull the right name. Hold on, I gotta pull the right list up here.
There we go.
My OT5 right now is gonna be Blake Miller out of Clemson. And Blake Miller is a guy who I really liked watching just throughout the season. And then I got in the tape to break him down for the summer, and I just saw a lot of the balance issues that I'm sure Drew's going to bring up because that's going to be a gripe for him. But Blake Miller has the athleticism to succeed in a wide zone scheme, and he has a nice frame. I think he plays like he's going to be a lot lighter in the pants than he actually is. I think he has decent power that he can bring with him as well. It's just it's a pad height and just balance issues. Like if he could just lock himself in, settle a little bit more, and not be in such a hurry to get everywhere, I think he'd be a much cleaner prospect. But you see him just getting to the second level and overrunning linebackers and missing them. You see him falling off blocks pretty often. But just the upside, if he could just clean up some of these small technical issues, is awesome. Just because, again, he moves really well, plays with good length. I think he moves guys well in the run game, especially on doubles. He's a crushing down blocker on these double teams. And I just, great ceiling, great in quick sets, great in pass pro, in my opinion, but just can't do it in space. And that's where you really need these tackles, especially the modern NFL. You got to operate in space. That's why he dropped to, but he's still at 5 for me. But he dropped to 5 just because I worry about him tracking players in space.
Yeah, you kind of nailed exactly my gripes with him. He's currently my OT9. Again, I like the power from him. I think the core strength was the thing you mentioned when we talked watching him, was where a lot of that balance issues come in, I think. A lot of the issues working in space. That is just a major thing he's got to reel in. And that's kind of kills him for me. The balance issues are a major pet peeve of mine. It's why I hated Kelvin Banks coming out last year. And it's, I think I do see an athletic ceiling with him. I think he's a pretty good athlete. The power is fun. I think when he latches onto a guy, the rep's kind of over. When he gets in somebody's frame, he gets to shut him down. I love the grip strength. Again, very powerful player. You see the power in the run game. I think he moves guys pretty well. But the constant lunging into contact, which is where a lot of the balance issues come from, that kills him for me. It's a lot of the head down, battering ram stuff that I had problems with in last year's class all throughout. So that's a major gripe with me. I thought the hand usage, the punch especially, was really, really sloppy. Like you mentioned, just a long way to go technique-wise. The punch was late. A lot of times the hands were pretty late. The punch was way too wide. The hand placement could use a lot of work. He's a hugger a lot of times, I think, too, which kind of limits a lot of the natural play strength and power that he does have. So again, this is a guy that could jump up, like a good 2024. This guy could jump up a long way. Like he could easily crack the top 5, top 3. He's got the physical traits, just a long way to go technique-wise in my eyes. And you know me, I'm not somebody that really buys into the putting guys high on the leap, the fabled senior season leap that we keep talking about with especially quarterbacks. A lot of positions where we chase the athletic ceiling. So I need to see it with my eyes before I can put him that high on a projection. So again, I like the athleticism, I like the traits, I like the power, but I need to see the technique improve a little bit more. But Ben, how'd you come away on him?
Yeah, I was kind of in the same boat as Drew on Blake Miller. He was kind of a roller coaster to me in the games that I watched, not within the game, but from game to game. The Texas tape was pretty ugly. I thought their edge group, Trey Moore and Colin Simmons, did some great things against Blake Miller. But then you turn on the South Carolina tape, and he kind of ate Dylan Stewart's lunch. Like, he was, I don't know if a switch flipped or something in his mind, just something with that rivalry, but he was on one that entire game. Like there were plays where you have to go to the wide angle to see where Blake Miller took Dylan Stewart, just completely out of the play. But like Drew said, a lot of the balance things was what I was majorly concerned about. I think he dips his head a lot, but a guy that's a good athlete, we'll see where he can leap this season.
Yeah, for sure. And then Ben, we'll jump over to your list. Who's kicking off your top 5?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Caleb Lomu out of Utah. This is a guy that's an easy mover, great athlete. I think he's got nimble feet. I think my main concern with him, I think the hand placement is good, but it's late a lot of the times. It just feels like it's just a tick off. And then in the run game, the feet seem like they get tangled up a little bit. That was something I noticed in the Colorado game, more so than the BYU game. And then I think in pass pro, sometimes he can get overextended, get a little over his skis. And I think sometimes he opens up inside counters by getting too deep into his pass set. But I did like a lot of the flashes that I saw. I mean, this was a guy that was a redshirt freshman starting at age 19 for a Power 4 program that's really athletic. I think one thing that he can work on is playing with more leverage. But I did like a lot of the flashes that I saw. He's an early second-round grade for me right now. Just kind of goes to show how good I think this offensive tackle class is as a whole, that's my 5. But yeah, I did like a lot of what I saw. Hopefully he takes a good jump this season. Yeah.
Caleb Lomu is my 3, OT3. And that's probably just a little bit of bias for me on athleticism. Parker knows I love my really rangy athletic tackles. That's going to get you a long way with me. And that is Caleb Lomu to me. Again, the age goes into it for me too. Again, I just mentioned I'm not somebody that buys in on the projection too much, but I have to give him some credit for being, like you mentioned, a guy that was a redshirt freshman starting for a Power 4 program. There's just a lot of, for him to be as good as he was starting that young, there's a long way to go improvement-wise. And I think there's a really solid foundation to build off of, so I'm a little bit more confident in somebody like him to take that leap. But yeah, like the athleticism was the thing that just jumps off the tape to me. Like he's so rangy, the foot speed is awesome, just a pure raw elite athlete. You never saw him give up the corner. I thought both Utah tackles were something that I came away really impressed with in this, but they're both just immune to B-gap pressure. I think they both kind of overset a lot. They have a tendency to overset, but I think they can both afford it because they're both so athletic, and like Lomu is just immune to B-gap pressure. The mirror is incredible. I was really, really impressed with that. The hand usage I thought was really, really polished. Again, amazing for a 19-year-old playing at that level. The snatch strap was, again, really, really dangerous. I thought he had a great snatch strap. Just very, very developed and advanced for a player that young. The punch was an issue. I thought he punched late. The hands got in late, let guys into his frame a little bit too easily. Again, very, very wide with the hand placement is another pet peeve of mine. The anchor was a little bit shaky. I thought it was pretty good on a general basis. There were sometimes you'd see it collapse. There were flashes of some play strength issues, which I'm sure Parker will get into because he's a little bit lower on Lomu. But yeah, so you see the play strength flash sometimes, but again, the athleticism, the traits and the tools, while also being compounded with how good and advanced the hand usage was, how advanced he was technically as a redshirt freshman starting, gives him a really, really high ceiling to me. That is a guy I'm betting to take that leap because I think he's shown me enough for me to be confident in him doing that, and I'm really, really excited to see him develop. And Parker, I'm excited to hear you talk about both these guys because you are very closely in tune with the Utah football team, being a Utah guy. You got some great insight on both him and a guy we'll talk about a little bit later, I'm sure. So I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on both of these guys.
Yeah, no, I dove into the Utah tackles, I think, first thing this summer. Just kind of needed to get them both down. I know there's been a lot of hype for the guy on the other side early on in this process, but I know Lomu's been working his way up the boards, and so I had to get in and watch them early, especially being local. We don't get a lot of top talent come out of the U or the Y that often, so got to get on top of that, especially on the O-line. But Lomu was my first guy out. I had him at 6 on my list right now, right behind Blake Miller. But yeah, I think it's just kind of valuing what you value, and I don't know if I can give him the bump for athleticism over the play strength concerns and just his style of play. He's a technician, like you both talked about, and how he's got the pros cons there. But I just think he has to develop through some of those cons before I can get really excited about his ability to be a technician at the NFL level, because I think he has like the mindset and the patience to work all these different moves and things to kind of counter his play strength issues, but I don't think he does it well or quick enough off the jump to really be successful at the next level doing that. So I think for me, I'm just going to need to see like from a physical perspective, just a maturity bump year to year, because like you said, he is a very young player, so the play strength issues could very easily be hammered out by a strong offseason in the weight room and just a strong offseason of physical development. But we won't know till we know. But if he's able to lock in that anchor and show a lot more strength in the run game, I'll be a lot more excited about him. But right now I see him as a guard just because I think you can really maximize that athleticism, and I worry about the range. I think he plays really short. I don't know what the official arm length is, obviously, but just watching the film, he lets guys kind of get into him, and then when you're doing that with a lack of anchor, or even in the run game, we're not able to extend on guys that often or that regularly, you're just going to run into issues, especially at the NFL level, and that's what has me worried about him. I think he's a very good college football player. I think he's going to be a good player this season. When you start looking at that transition and trying to evaluate that transition to the next level, I just don't think he's going to be able to get away with some of the things he is right now. So again, just a young player that needs physical development, which is more than capable of doing over the course of one offseason. So I'm very, very excited to see him go. Another player that, even though he's young, if he does come out, I'd love to see him down in Mobile as well, just to kind of get a feel for his play style in person.
Yeah, for sure. I really, really excited to see his development over the course. I think you've heard him talked a lot as a 2026 guy. I don't know if he'd be a guy that would wait until 2027 to declare. But either way, I think he's technically advanced enough now where I'd feel comfortable with him as a 2026 guy. But like you mentioned, just the physical development from a frame standpoint, it'll be really fun to see how he shakes out over the years with him starting that young. And I guess kicking off my number 5 is PJ Williams out of SMU. I was really impressed with his tape and how it progressed. That was something Ben mentioned to me too, because he watched a little bit of the earlier season stuff than I did. I watched a lot more of his playoff stuff. I thought he really, really finished the season strong. If he can carry on his momentum from the playoff tape into next year, I think he's a guy that's really going to climb boards. I was really, really impressed with his Clemson and his Penn State tape. I thought he handled both. He wasn't up against TJ Parker all that often, and I'm not sure TJ Parker would have been the best matchup for him because I think you would see some anchor issues flash here and there. Not anything consistent. He's very like what we mentioned with the honorable mention guys, like I thought he was very, very average, middle of the road on a lot of stuff. I was really impressed with him technically. I thought he was really advanced technically with his hands. The punch was really, really fun. He had a really disruptive two-hand punch. Would really disrupt edge rushers early. Really, really impressed with him overall from a technical standpoint. I think he's very average as far as strength and athleticism go. Not a guy that's got range issues, but also not somebody I write home as an athlete. Just again, very middle of the road. Not a guy I think you have to kick inside, but good enough to not give up the corner on a consistent basis. Again, pretty good run blocker. I thought he had some nice power on down blocks. Would move guys off the line of scrimmage at a pretty consistent basis. But the play strength is not something you're screaming about. Again, to me, just a very, very average physical guy, but was advanced technically. And I thought he really grew as the year went on. And I'm excited to see if he can carry on the momentum from the playoff tape into next year. And Ben, I think you were pretty impressed with the Clemson tape too, from what I remember.
Yeah, I watched his Boston College tape first, and he was a guy that I was like, there's some good things here, but and I think he was like a redshirt sophomore last year, so I think he was in his first season playing, and it kind of looked that way. I thought he was a pretty good athlete. I didn't think he was like great, but I thought he was a pretty good athlete. And I feel like he tried to rely on that a little bit too much against Boston College. Then you fast forward to the Clemson tape, and I thought it was really refined. He had a really good snatch trap against Clemson. I thought he timed his punches really well that game. I think something, even with relying on the athleticism in the Boston College tape, I thought his hands never stopped, even if they didn't always have the best placement. He just, kept punching. I think sometimes one of the things that stood out to me as maybe the biggest difference between the Boston College and the Clemson game, the Boston College game looked like he was really indecisive, especially if there was like a six-man line of scrimmage defensively. It seemed like he was just a tick late to decide whether to take the inside or the outside man. Clemson tape, he was all on top of it. So hopefully we get a lot more of that later season PJ Williams tape. He's a really fun guy. I can't wait to see what 2025 looks for him.
Yeah, for sure. And Parker, have you gotten into a lot of PJ Williams yet? Have you seen what just peripheral?
Yeah, no, I was actually a big fan of PJ Williams. I think he's a great kind of plug and play piece for some of these offensive lines in the NFL that are just missing guys, like just need bodies. Because I do think he's got really solid guard to tackle flexibility, like you hinted to. You don't have to put him at guard. I'd love to evaluate his interior guy, but I think he can handle himself as a tackle. I do think he's got a better ceiling on the interior, but I do think he's a guy that's going to be high on boards for teams as we get later into the process, just because I feel like he can play both extremely well. I don't think he's going to, like you said, flash at either position. I don't think he's going to really excite you at either spot, but when you're looking to plug holes, like if you're one of these teams like Carolina or even like Tennessee, where you kind of just want to keep bringing in bodies that you can just throw into the line and work out who your best five is, I think P.J. Williams is going to be a great just player to bring into that room. So I'm excited to see what he's able to do through the process and where he's able to land, because he's a guy I'm going to be a lot higher on. I think he's my OT2 because I have one OT not on my list because I haven't graded a different spot. But him being OT2 says I think everything I need to say about him.
Yeah, there we go. And I guess jumping back to the fours, Parker, we'll kick back to you for your number 4, which is
Emil Wagner out of Notre Dame. I actually have him graded 0.01 points higher than Blake Miller, who is my 5. And I think I was talking to Drew about it either today or yesterday. But if you didn't like Blake Miller, you're gonna hate Emil Wagner. But if you like Blake Miller, I think Emil Wagner is just Blake Miller but stronger. I think they both have balance issues. They both are leaners. They have the core strength issues. But Emil Wagner is going to blow guys off the ball in the run game. And I don't think Blake Miller really does that. But what Emil Wagner gives up in order to do that, I think he's just a lot more inconsistent in pass pro. Not saying he's good or bad, but he's going to have some reps where he's just going to get hands on a guy and lock it up. And he's going to have other reps where he hasn't even touched a defender and he runs right by him. But it's just like the flashes that he shows are consistent enough where it's like, man, if you could just settle in and have that higher end average, you're going to be a really good football player. Because, again, I think the play strength, the grip strength's awesome. I like when he's able to get on some of these second-level defenders in the run game. He can just delete linebackers if he's able to find them. But, yeah, it's just another guy where if you can clean up some small technical issues in your game, where it's funny comparing some of these guys right now in this class as early on as I am, because you have some of these guys like we've talked about that are technicians, and you have some of these guys that are just, maybe not the best athlete, but just really strong dudes who just try and be really strong dudes on the football field. And I think that's just what you're going to get from Emil Wagner. I'm interested to see I mean, Notre Dame does a great job developing offensive linemen, so I'm excited to see what he's able to do this season. But I was a huge fan of his game, and again, if you like Blake Miller, you're gonna like Wagner. If you couldn't see it with Miller, you're gonna hate Emil Wagner.
Yeah, for sure. He's a guy that I unfortunately didn't get into as much tape as I wanted to. I only got his Penn State game in. But I agree with pretty much everything Parker said peripherally. Really, really strong player, but again, I have a lot of the same gripes. The balance issues are killer for me. I think it's the same thing. If he's a guy that can reel in that core strength, there's, again, really high ceiling there because of the play strength. But yeah, just a lot of those like personal pet peeves with me that really kill offensive linemen in my eyes. He's got a lot of those. And Ben, I think you were a lot lower on Wagner too, if I remember correctly. I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah, not necessarily as far as a grade, but just on the list. Kind of that bottom 4 was in much of the same range. But it's kind of the same things with Blake Miller. Now, the flashes I liked of Emil Wagner were higher than what I liked of Blake Miller. Like Dalton Miller, a guy that we like, put out a tweet between a battle of him and Shamar Stewart, and it said two bulls fighting over territory, which that was a really fun rep. Yeah, I echo the same things that really both of you said. If you don't like Blake Miller, you're not going to like Emil Wagner, just for the same types of reasons. But I think something that may be able to help him this year is offensive line continuity. Notre Dame had a really good offensive line last year, but if you look at their starting lineup from the A&M game, it looked a lot different than it did against Ohio State. And this year they're getting Charles, I think it's Jagusa is how you pronounce it, back at right guard, so he'll be next to Emil Wagner. I don't think he played until the playoff game against Georgia last year. So hopefully Notre Dame can keep that same 5 that they've got going in all the way through the season and just kind of help stabilize that line, even though all pieces of that line last year were good.
Yeah, for sure. And then jumping into your number 4, Ben, who rounds out your or is your next up after your 5?
Yeah, I had Francis Mauigoa out of Miami. He's a guy that I'm leaning more towards moving to guard the more and more I watch him. But I thought he was a pretty good athlete. I thought where you really saw that was him as a reach blocker. I didn't really like his pass set as much as I thought I would. But I did like a lot of the athleticism I saw in the run game. I think maybe my biggest gripe with him was that whether it was the pass or the run, he got beat across his face a lot. I don't know if that's a timing issue for him or if that's a length issue for him, but that's something I really want to see him improve on. But I think he's got a pretty good floor. And as far as me in summer scouting, that's really what I'm looking for on this offensive line.
Yeah. For me, Mauigoa was a pretty tough watch. He's another guy that's probably the one me and Ben are gonna differ the most on. I also see him more as a guard. That's where he's probably going to shake out for me on my board. But he would be my OT 11, currently my lowest ranked OT. I had a lot of issues with him too. I think that was, as a straight line athlete, I thought, like you mentioned, as a run blocker, I thought he got out in space pretty well. He was a pretty twitchy guy for his size. But I had a lot of issues with play strength. I thought he, like especially the Louisville game, Ashton Gelati kicked him up and down that field all day. He really let guys into his frame. I thought he had a nice outside hand punch. That was nice. It was pretty consistent that he flashed. But the hand usage on a general basis was not where I'd like it to be. I thought he had a lot of grip strength issues too. I thought he let guys pry their hand, like get his fans off their frame on a pretty consistent basis. It was pretty easy for them to do that. So that was an issue for me that popped up. I thought while he was a pretty good straight line athlete, the foot speed was kind of a concern for me. I thought he gave up the corner at a pretty consistent basis. Like you already mentioned, guys beating him across his face. I thought the big gap the mirror could use some serious work too. So for me, the play strength issues really killed it. I think he's probably a guy that fits more on the interior. But then again, I have a hard time saying that too because I thought he had bad leverage issues. I thought he really let guys win the leverage battle, get under his pads. So that would worry me just as much, if not more, on the interior than it would on the outside. So he's got a really kind of killer blend of issues for me. So he's going to shake out a lot lower. I know there's some people that are really high on him. I couldn't really get there with him. Like I mentioned, just the blend of issues that he has. I think he's a guy that is kind of tough to find a spot for because there's some killer issues whether he's on the interior or the outside. You don't really feel good with him at either position, in my opinion. So that's just, again, I got the guy that's got some killer stuff for me and the way I evaluate offensive line. Maybe it's an issue with me having too many personal biases when it comes to certain traits. But I think for me, he's just got a bad blend of problems in my eyes. And Parker, I don't know if you've seen anything different from him.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you talked about the leverage. That's exactly what I was going to bring up. I think to address the B gap issue, I think it is a lower half strength issue. He just doesn't post well. Like when he tries to replace that inside foot against inside moves, like even if he can get the hand on the body, like he's just not going to drive that defender vertical at all. He's going to let them kind of drive into him and win that space. And so he's got to be a much more patient setter. He's got to maintain that inside leverage in pass pro and just let guys take the corner. But then again, like you guys brought up, I mean, he struggles to win that. He isn't either. He's playing with short arms or he's playing with a limited amount of foot speed. Like it's just, I feel like every loss he has comes from a different angle, right? I feel like he has too many ways to lose in his game right now. A guy I would definitely throw on the interior. I'd much rather try and work with the pad height and leverage issues and try and iron those out and let him go be a strong run blocker. I think he has a powerful punch where he's able to land hands. Like I think he's shown a lot of flash with his hand usage. Another guy that I think could develop into a technician in this class. I don't think he's too far off from doing that. I just think he very clearly hasn't focused on that in his game. But it's hard for me to find a lot of pros with this game. I need to dive in and get a few more games in. But yeah, overall, I would love to just kick him inside and let him be a project for somebody, like an early day 3 get for somebody. And I just think this is going to be a guy. I think Mauigoa is going to be, Drew, who you and I are low on compared to consensus all cycle. That something happens in the spring where he just starts sliding. But it's just.
Yep.
It's hard to find something to like, I think is a good way to say it.
Yep. I'm kind of with you there. Then jumping into my number 4 is a guy that it was the last one I got to, actually. It was really late to put him in at the last minute. But I was really, really impressed with Caleb Tiernan out of Northwestern. He's a guy that I mentioned to Parker right before we went on. That he just fits the bill of the Northwestern offensive lineman. The Peter Skorunskis, the Rashawn Slaters. Like he is a Northwestern O-lineman to a T. He's a redshirt senior, so a little bit later in his development track. But I was really, really impressed with him overall. Huge frame, 6'7", 330, really, really good length. I don't have official, arm length numbers because I'm not nearly as tapped in as I should be. But just from the eye test, what he looks like on film, I would expect some pretty decent arm length measurements. Uses his length really, really well. Extremely powerful player. Great anchor. I love the play strength. Crushing on down blocks. Like there is a routine, at least 3 or 4 pancakes on down blocks every single game you watch. The Ohio State tape was especially really, really impressive to me. Like he shut down JTT all game long. You'd see him give up the corner consistently against Ohio State. At least I didn't. I thought Michigan was a little bit where you'd see that pop up. Like you're going to hear the biggest issue with him is the range, right? I think he has pretty heavy feet, being a guy that big. I still think he's a good enough athlete to stay outside. People mention him as a guard. I think the 6'7" would be kind of difficult on the interior to me. But again, I don't think he's a poor enough athlete where you have to kick him inside. I think he's good enough to survive on the outside, mixed with how good his length is and how well he can use it. I think he's a guy that can survive as an offensive tackle. I think, like I mentioned, the anchor was really good. Very, very technically advanced, too. Technically sound hand usage. Has a really nice jarring punch. He's really, really aggressive in his pass sets. Like he wants to get his hands in their chest early. He really wants to disrupt edge rushers' timing and their plan. I think that does open him up to swipes and open him up to B-gap pressure. I thought he got beat on the inside a couple of times because he was so aggressive in his pass sets and wanted to get into their chest so early. But again, overall, very technically sound player. I think he's extremely powerful. Good enough athlete to stay on the outside. You will see him lose the corner, like I mentioned in the Michigan game. He gave up the corner pretty consistently to Josiah Stewart. But overall, I came away very, very impressed. He's an early second-round grade for me right now, and I just love the power in his game. Ben, what'd you see from him?
Yeah, I was a little bit lower on Tiernan, but not way too far down. I think again, it's just a testament to how much I like this group as a whole. But that Ohio State tape was one of my favorite watches of this class so far. I thought he did a really nice job mirroring. In that Ohio State game, didn't give up the B gap really at all. Completely shut down not just JTT but Jack Sawyer as well. But yeah, really pretty good athlete in that game. And I thought he was really technically advanced as a pass protector. Where I kind of started to soften up on him a little bit was that Michigan tape. Just losing that outside corner. I do think he is long, but it's something I'll talk about with a guy later. I don't think he did a good enough job when he got beat of maybe trying to extend them past the back of the pocket. But he's a guy, like you said, redshirt senior. I think he's still got some room to develop. And I wouldn't be surprised. A lot of the Northwestern guys took a leap at some point. And I wouldn't be surprised if he jumps in that back half of that top 5 for me later.
Yeah, for sure. And then Parker, I know you probably still want to get a couple games in on him from what I remember, but I don't know if you've seen anything peripherally from other tape you've watched, especially being an Ohio guy.
No, I'm excited to watch Tiernan. I haven't gotten into his film at all yet, but I was talking to you about him this morning, and I'm super. I mean, I was looking back because you brought it up, but I'm like, I think I like Northwestern tackles. Like, I think I might, whatever they like, I think I like. Because I was a huge fan of Slater. I think I had Slater as OT1 in that class. Skoronski I was high on, even though I was high on him as more of an interior flex guy. I was like, no, he's going to play all three interior positions well and be able to flex out to tackle. Like, I think he's a great prospect. So I'm excited. I'm watching Tiernan today just because you brought him up, and so I'm excited to get into the film and break it down. But, I mean, from what it sounds like and, like, looking at the profile, and, I mean, I think he's going to just land in that same bucket where it's going to be, it's the short arms, but don't worry about the short arm length if it comes out short. Worry about the range he plays with. I think it's such a big thing with tackles. People get so hooked on the arm length. But go watch the tape and see, like, you can have a guy with 32-inch arms that plays extremely long. And you have a guy with 36-inch arms that plays extremely tight. And so I think the Northwestern, staff has done a great job of coaching that into guys. I think all of their guys play with good length. I mean, again, go back to talking about Rashawn Slater, who I'm not saying is a comp. Again, I haven't watched Tiernan yet. But, I mean, guy with 33-inch arms, but played like he had super long arms, had great feet, was another great technician. Like, if he can follow in that pipeline, I'm going to love him. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, for sure. He very, like I said, he fits that bill for the Northwestern guys. I think I've been pretty high on all those guys so far. So whatever they're doing over there, they're doing it right. So yeah, I'm really excited to see him over this next year. And then jumping into our threes, Parker, I will kick it back to you.
Oh man, but now we're getting into the nitty gritty. Now I'm going to start to get nervous. My three right now is Xavier Chaplin. I thought he was kind of like an Isaiah World light. I thought they do a lot of the same things well, and they have a lot of the same weaknesses. I think Chaplin, I want him to focus on being a technician because I feel like he's got the traits. I feel like he kind of checks the boxes, but I feel like just the hand fighting is just not there at all. Like, I feel like the punch timing's fine, but then he's not able to replace if he gets swiped. He's not able to, he doesn't mix up his strikes either. He just kind of the same, I want to hit you here every single time and just see what you do about it. But if he could correct the hands and stay a little more square in protection, he's gonna fly up my board. But I thought he lined up with World a lot. I just thought he was very, 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 very raw, like technically raw. And I feel like if he can come along that path, that he's going to be another top end prospect. I mean, he's already 3 on my board, but he's going to be a top end tackle in this class.
Yeah, for sure. Chaplin is my 2. I'm a huge Xavier Chaplin fan. He's currently top 10 on my board. He's a first round grade for me currently. I'll echo the rawness. I think the hand usage could use a lot of work. Like you said, not the level of hand fighter you'd want. I'd like to see that get polished up a lot. But I mean, obviously the frame is the first thing that jumps off to you, being 6'7", 340, and he's every bit of that on tape to me. Like, he's massive. Another guy that's got, on top of that, just incredible arm length to me too, just from what it looks like. I don't have an official number, but very, very long. I think he uses the length well. While he does need to clean up a lot of the hand fighting to me, I thought he had a great snatch strap. That was something he pulled out a lot. That was really impressive to me. He had a lot of tough matchups too against that. Like, he had a lot. That was not an easy schedule as far as pass rushers go for Virginia Tech. I thought he shut down Mike Green in a lot of the Marshall game too. That was something that was really impressive to me. I think he's an extremely talented athlete. It's at that size. Not a guy that has anybody at 6'7", 340 is going to have some level of range issues, but kind of like what we mentioned with Jalen Travis last year, where a guy that big, I don't think the range issues are a problem for a guy that big. Like, when you're that big and that long, I can deal with having a tiny bit of foot speed issues because they're not bad for a guy that size. Like, he's a very top-end athlete for being that big. I thought he had a really powerful punch. Like you mentioned, the punch timing and accuracy was really impressive to me. I think he did have a tendency to overset a little bit, which is kind of tough for a guy that can't slide back on the inside and recover from that as well. So that's something I'd like to see him clean up. Again, you kind of have to overset to make up for some of the range issues that he has. But I'd like to see him get a little bit less aggressive just because he can't slide inside as well. I thought he had some trouble recognizing stunts too. He's a little bit late on that a lot of times throughout a lot of that tape. And I'd like to see him get better at sustaining blocks. But on a general basis, like I said, it's really just a bet on the athleticism, the massive frame, how athletic he is in that frame, and just how powerful he is. Like, there is just so many highlight finisher blocks on that tape. And he's just such a powerful run blocker, awesome on down blocks. I thought he worked well in space for a guy that big too. So I was just really, really impressed with Chaplin. I'm excited to see what he does in the SEC. Obviously transferring to Auburn. So I'm really, really excited to see him. Ben, I think you were a little bit lower on him too, so I'm excited to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I liked a lot of what I saw from Xavier Chaplin. He's a guy that if I was betting on who's going to make my top five, he's probably a guy I would bet on because I think he'll get more technically refined as the season goes. But I mean, he's a road grader as a run blocker. I mean, from the first rep against Marshall, he's just displacing people. I think he's a pretty good athlete. I think one of the things that kind of jumped out to me on the con side, it really was an issue against Miami. I didn't really see it anywhere else. And it shouldn't have been a crowd issue thing because Miami games, you could hear a pin drop, even if they're playing at home. There's no fans there. But he was really slow out of his stance that game. I don't know if it was a snap timing thing. They weren't running silent count or anything like that. But that was just kind of an interesting thing that that kind of stood out to me. But like you said, he's really long. I mean, his arms are maybe the longest in his class, just looking from just purely from the tape. I do think when he gets into his set, he starts his hands really low. I think that can mess with his timing some. I think he could, maybe better his timing by raising his hands a little bit when he gets into a set. But I think he's going to be pretty good at Auburn. And again, like I said, if we're projecting for the future, I would bet that he at least is very close to my top five, probably in my top five come next April.
Yeah, for sure. Really excited to see the jump, and like I mentioned, just to see him against that SEC gauntlet of pass rushers. It'll be fun to see him in that conference. And then Ben, jumping into year three, I think you had a kind of a surprise here, right?
Yeah, feels like there are guys that love this guy and there are guys that hate this guy, and I feel like I'm going to get a little. I feel like I'm going to get a little attacked here, but I had Kadyn Proctor out of Alabama at number 3. Probably my favorite rep of any tackle in this class was his rep against South Carolina, where Dylan Stewart tries an inside counter, gives him his chest, and Kadyn Proctor just sends him, 3 feet down into the turf. I'll start with the cons. I do see the range issues, and I can see why people would be lower on him. But I did think, at least in the games against better competition, he did a good job of extending guys past the pocket. A guy that I like to see a lot of O-line content from, Kyron Samuels on Twitter, kind of put out a point that if he can play like he did in the big games, then he could be a guy that, solidifies himself in that top range. So I went and watched some of the lower level games, and it did look like he wasn't as amped up as he was for those big games. So there could be some concern there. But he had really strong, powerful hands. I mean, especially against Tennessee, I think it was Jason Jenkins, one of our edge guys, that stood out the most. He just completely not a factor once Kadyn Proctor got his hands on him. And then you turn on the Georgia film, and Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, who was a draft prospect last year, I mean, just could not pry his hands off of him. I do think I don't think he's like any good athlete or anything, but I think at his size, he's a decent enough athlete. I would like to see him drop some weight, though. I don't think he needs to be 360 pounds. If he can get in that 335 to 340 range and hold the anchor, I think that would be a good range for him. But definitely a very polarizing guy. I can see both ends of the spectrum. He's just a guy that I really liked, the tape that I did see.
Yeah. To me, Kadyn Proctor's my OT10, so another guy we're going to be kind of different on. And to me, he's raw in every sense of the word. Like, if I could see a pretty clear linear path to Proctor being a really, really, really good offensive tackle, but he's got a lot to rein in before that happens, both physically and technically. I think to me, the size is the first thing you have to reel in. Allegedly, there's some major cardio issues with him too that they've got to reel in, and I think you can see that on tape too. He'll, like on the longer drives, especially, he just completely runs out of gas. And I think to just the frame again, 360 is way too big. I think they've got to get him down in that 330, 340 range. Like you mentioned already, I think that's the biggest hurdle for me. If you can get him down and rein in that weight, I think he's a guy I'm going to have a lot more faith in. But again, I think I was a little bit more concerned with the athleticism than you were. The range was major to me. I think I could probably beat him around the corner. And I think, again, the length is awesome. The frame is, again, if you can lower the weight down to that 330, 340 range, I love the frame. I love the power. Like, he's throwing around second-level defenders like paperweights. Like you mentioned, he threw Dylan Stewart around the field all day long. I think the punch should be a little bit more powerful than it is for his size. I'd like to see a little bit more pop in his hands. I think the hand usage needs to get a lot really cleaned up. I think he's raw technically, just like he is with his frame. I'd like to see him get coached up a lot as far as hand fighting goes. Just clean up the hand usage. But again, very, very powerful. I can see there's an extremely high ceiling with Proctor. I just need to see a little bit more development, both technically and from a athletic standpoint. to just physically before I can get a little bit more comfortable with him. So I'm going to be on the lower end. But again, I can totally see why there's people high on him. The strength is enticing, and then the ceiling is really, really high. But Parker, I'll kick it over to you for any thoughts you have on him.
Yeah, I know. I feel like Proctor is like the epitome of what people that just see like every other O-line take that I have on Twitter. Like, I feel like that's what they think I'm going to love is like Kadyn Proctor. But I feel like, I mean, the way it's going to be interesting to watch, he's not going to weigh in at anything that he goes to this offseason.
No.
The rumors that came out of last season, I'm interested to see what kind of official numbers he rolls into on the roster out of camp. Because I heard that he was a lot further away from that 360 the wrong way than you want him to be. Yep. But yeah, I mean, the play strength's obviously there. The good, like, you're not going to run through him. But I also don't think he's going to be very productive for you outside of being just a backside run blocker. I think he can move some of these smaller DNs out of the way if he can get his hands on in the run game. But you get guys with true power, and they're just going to stalemate him at the point of attack and close the corner. And you guys already talked about the issues in pass protection. And just a guy that I haven't gotten an official grade on him just because I keep procrastinating going into the film. But as a guy that I've watched for a long time, knowing that he was going to be a big name prospect when he got here, I mean, I'm very familiar with his game, and just it's just the lack of short area quickness, the lack of long speed, the lack of ability to be productive at the second level. He's really just a first level blocker, and like Drew said, you get on a more extended drive, you're really just going to lose him towards the back end of the drive. And again, like you guys talked about, there's a very clear path for development, but it's just if he's able to check the boxes along the way or not. And I do worry. I mean, he's going to be a guy that's going to have all kinds of crazy media come next spring. So get your grades on Proctor done early so you don't get, falling into the media bias once they start coming out with some of these crazy stories that are come out of interviews and as he starts hitting the circuit. But just an interesting player to watch for sure, because you can see the path, but he's got to want it. And not knowing the guy at all, I mean, you wonder if he wants it.
Yep. Absolutely. Then Parker, we already talked about your 3, I believe. And
Yes,
then
sir.
my 3 was Caleb Lomu, who we talked about a little bit earlier. And then my 2 was Xavier Chaplin, who we've already talked about earlier, so we're kind of starting to reel in a little bit of this. Getting into our top 2s, Parker, I think your 2 was PJ Williams, who we already talked about.
Yes, sir.
Ben, your 2 was Parker's 1. So we'll go ahead and jump into that. And then we'll jump into my 1, who is, I believe, all of our 1s. Or again, Parker, you see him more as a guard, but he's your number 1 offensive lineman. So yeah, without further ado, we'll jump into these last 2 guys, both big names throughout summer. Really excited to see both of these guys next year. And then Ben, I'll go ahead and let you take him because he's your number 2. Just next up.
Yeah, Isaiah World, transfer from Nevada to Oregon. I loved his tape. I thought he was just exceptional athlete. Anytime I see a tackle reach a 2 technique, kind of mark that down in the notes. Like, that's pretty insane. I don't think he's 6'8", which is what he's listed at, but I thought he looks like he's about 6'6". I thought he played with great leverage in pass protection. Like we already talked about, he's a great reach blocker. I thought on rare occasions his hands got a little bit wide, but I thought for the most part, for a guy that's coming out of a small school like that, the hand usage was very good. And then once he gets up to Oregon, I mean, he's just going to be an absolute physical beast coming out of that nutrition program. The difference between Nevada's nutrition program and Oregon's, I don't think, can be overstated. Taking that kind of jump, I mean, he's going to be a first guy off the bus type of guy. But again, really good puller, really good snatch trap. I really liked everything that I saw out of Isaiah World. And even when he makes a mistake on tape, he does it going 100 miles an hour. So, I mean, I love the effort too.
Yep. And then Parker, he's your number 1, I believe. So I'll let you go ahead and dote on him because I'm lower on him. I'll rear it up and be the villain on Isaiah World because I guess it would have to be.
No, Drew.
I know.
Oh, man.
I know.
No. I mean, World's like 100% projection for me, and like you said, I mean, I have him as my 1 because I have the other. My O-line 1 is great as an interior guy right now that we'll talk about. But yeah, Isaiah World's tape's exciting, but I think this might be the first player in history that I'm actually going all in just based on the ceiling, because I'm a huge fan of Malik Terry and what he's done at Oregon. One of my favorite O-line coaches that I model a lot of my game after. And I think why I'm so excited on his potentials because of what Terry's able to do as far as developing offensive linemen as pass protectors and what he does in pass protection. because I really feel like Isaiah World was fine, when it came to second level blocking or even displacing guys in the run game. Where his big lumps came was in pass protection, in my opinion. I feel like he just gets really off his base, gets really tall, opens his hips, like just has a lot of these like minor, just technical issues as a protector. But I mean, getting him in with Terry for an off season and a season, I think he's going to be able to take him a long way. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're seeing Isaiah World lock down Big Ten pass rushers this fall. And they've taken a really big leap in that area. And a guy with this frame, this athletic profile, in my opinion, like he's going to lay down in Indy this spring. I mean, if you can have really good pass blocking tape, he's going to go high. And I just think the floor for him is going to be so high coming into the actual draft come the spring that I want to just buy my stock early. So I'll buy that now and let that ride.
Yeah. And I guess I'm just kind of on the opposite end. He's a guy that I'm not quite willing to buy into that jump to, and I'm probably going to be eating my words come next spring, where he gets into that Oregon program and does develop up the stuff that I'm worried about. I'm sure this is another guy that will end up in my high on my board next year. But right now, I've just got, again, maybe it's the pet peeves. Again, I think he's a guy with balance issues that really, really bothers me. I think he plays really, really off balance. I think he lunges into contact a lot. And I think that kind of makes up, or in an attempt to make up for the lack of play strength. I think that was the consistent thing that worried me too. As well, he does have that massive frame, like you said, 6'7", wherever he is, 310. Not quite as powerful as that frame would suggest. I think there's a pretty strong lack of play strength to me. I think he is a good hand fighter on a general basis. I like the snatch trap, like you mentioned, really nice snatch trap. I didn't love the punch. Again, I thought, where the lack of play strength really showed up, I thought the punch was really soft. I thought it was late. I thought he was kind of wide, too. I didn't love the hand placement. I thought he let guys into his frame a little bit too easy. I had a little bit more leverage concerns than Ben did. I thought he played high a lot of times, really let guys under his pad level. Again, a lot of that is pretty easily cleaned up by a better coaching staff. The difference between coaching at Nevada and Oregon, like we mentioned, it's a crater-sized gap. So a lot of that probably will get cleaned up over this year. But right now, it's just a little bit too much for me to get over. I thought the run blocking left a lot to be desired. I thought, like you mentioned, he's a great athlete at that size. Like the reach blocks were fun, but on a general basis, I thought just because of the lack of play strength, the run blocking, I was a little bit worried about on a consistent basis. So really, it's just a play strength and technique issue for me right now. I'm a little bit more wary on that jump, but I am very excited to see him in a program like Oregon's and to see how that coaching staff can develop him up. But I think he's a guy that could very, very easily take a leap into a high first-round guy next year. I probably will be eating my words when we get him in that Oregon staff, because the traits are awesome. But I'm just a little bit wary of that right now because I'm apparently a floor guy now. I've just completely flipped. I don't know when that happened, but
Congrats.
I guess I am now. Yeah, I don't know when I ended up here, but I guess I am. So yeah, I'm a little bit wary on him, but the traits are there. It's easy to fall in love. I'm excited to see him and how he develops under that Big Ten staff next year. And then jumping into all of our ones, like Parker mentioned, he's got him as interior guy, but he is his O-line one. My O-line one, and I believe Ben's as well. Currently a top 3 player on my board, and that is Spencer Fano, the other offensive tackle out of Utah. And he is so much fun. He's right there with Olufashanu as my second highest tackle ever behind Joe Alt. Just really, really fun. Incredibly athletic. Awesome hands. Another guy with a really, really fun snatch trap on a pretty consistent basis, I thought. I really, really like reach blocks were awesome. Like he's an awesome run blocker. Every bit of run blocking, great on down blocks. Because of the athleticism, I thought he was pretty much automatic getting the outside shoulder on reach blocks. Again, like I mentioned earlier, we're talking about Lomu. The range is awesome. I didn't really ever see him give up the B gap. He does overset, like I mentioned, I think because he has some anchor issues, some play strength issues that'll flash. Because he's kind of light on the frame, missing a lot of lower body mass. I think that's something that concerns me a little bit. He just doesn't have an ass, which is a problem with offensive linemen. But again, I think he kind of makes up for that. He can afford to overset to kind of disrupt power rushers early because he has that awesome foot speed and that automatic mirror to the B gap. I thought he did a pretty good job consistently winning the leverage battle. I was impressed with that. I think that helps some of the play strength issues when you can win the leverage battle as consistently as he does. Top end athlete. The punch could use some work. I thought, the timing was a little bit off, and I didn't think it was as powerful as I'd like it to be, probably just because of the play strength issues. But he was very patient, kind of automatic on chops and swipes. You didn't really ever see him lose to those. I thought he did lunge into contact a little bit, which bothers me. But again, when you have a guy that kind of lacks the play strength, that's just something in an attempt to make up for that. Such a good run blocker. I thought the anchor was good for a guy that was as light as he is. I thought it was pretty impressive. Really good hand fighter, and he just tracks guys well in space. Just super athletic, already really technically advanced, and I'm just really excited to see what kind of jump he takes. But he's already a guy. He's top 3 on my board. A guy that I'd feel comfortable already taking really, really high in the draft. But I'll kick it over to Ben, and we'll ride out with Parker because he's the Utah guy.
Yeah, I love Spencer Fano. He's 4th on my board right now. And I could see both sides of it. I think he could stick at tackle. I think he could transition to guard just fine. I saw some people even mention him as a center, which would be fun to see him work there, maybe at the Senior Bowl. But excellent athlete. He's got really quick feet. I thought he had some of the best lateral quickness I've seen of any college offensive lineman in my short time watching from, a scouting perspective. There was a rep against BYU. I believe it was against Tyler Beatty, who was a draftable edge rusher from BYU last year. And it's like he teleports to mirror him, which was really fun to watch. But yeah, the run blocking tape is exceptional. I'll echo a lot of the things like you said. There are some things in the pass protection that give me some pause, but I think he, does well at mitigating that. A guy that's, again, like Caleb Lomu, both of those Utah offensive tackles, got to get in the weight room, put on some weight, and fill out that frame. But again, exceptional athlete. Like he caught a screen against Colorado on a trick play for a touchdown. You got to let the big boys eat. Love to see that.
He was moving too. He was moving.
He was moving. Yeah, he got there quick.
Yeah, and then Parker will let you round it out, make your case for him on the interior because you hate fun on the outside.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's crazy that I'm the Spencer Fano hater and he's 11 on my board. But that's not even bad. He's all the way down at 11 though compared to you guys. But no, I really just think, to reference what we always talk about, Drew. I think Fano fell for me because he doesn't pass the Jared Verse test, but he passes the Aeneas Peoples test. And I think, when you have a guy that just struggles, I think he's going to struggle with length. Length and power are going to tear him up. And any of these bendier edge rushers like in the Big Ten that we're going to see, not in the Big Ten, the Big 12 that we're going to see him go against, I think it's going to be really fun to watch because he's going to cover these guys up and just shut some of these edge rushers down throughout the regular season this year. But he's a guy that I would have loved to see, play against an Oregon in the Pac-12 or play against a USC where it's like you're able to get some of these more powerful guys coming off the edge and really test what he can do. I just don't feel like he's going to get tested in that area. And it's not really going to get exposed until a potential Senior Bowl run or until he's in the league. And so I just worry about him handling guys with length because he does play very sought off, and I assume the arm length's going to be low. I assume he's not going to be like a Troy Fautanu. But the length and power conversation is concerning to me. But like I said, he does pass the Aeneas Peoples test where you put him on the interior, he's going to cover up some of these quicker interior rushers, some of these 3 techs like to bounce around and stunt. And I think that's going to be highlighted on his Big 12 tape because these Big 12 defenses are a disaster to watch as a scout, but a really, really fun watch as a scheme guy, in my opinion. I'm an offensive guy, but I love watching Big 12 defense. But I think this season's going to be really good for his stock because, he's already very high on boards, but I think he's going to fly up because he's going to see some fun stuff that's going to highlight his profile. But I do worry. The power is just something that I haven't seen anybody really talk about. I've seen people talk about how he has a really good anchor. I disagree with that. I think he's got a fine anchor, but I think he's going to get bulldozed if he gets a good long arm is going to put him on his back. And I think we saw clips of both him and Lomu this past season getting kind of ran through by some of these stronger defensive ends. So, that's why he fell all the way down to 11 on my board. But you put him on the interior, and I think you hide a lot of the stuff I have concerns with. He's going to be able to handle power in the short area. You let these guys tee off from a wide 9 at him and get a long arm on him is not going to be ideal for him. But putting him in the box where you got a guy in the B gap or A gap that he's going to be able to one-on-one with or square up with, he's going to win that matchup, in my opinion, at least 80% of the time at the next level. As he gets into his career. Just because of how he's able to use his hands, how he's able to master his leverage. But yeah, just the lower body strength and just the ability to really sit on some of the power moves that he sees just is a really big concern for me as a tackle. So I just bumped him inside. Great football player, though.
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to see him add at least a little bit of mass. You don't want to add too much to really hinder the athleticism, but it'd be nice to see him add a little bit of lower body mass, like we mentioned, get him under a squat rack. But it's just going to be so much fun to see all of these guys take the jump into next year. A lot of them, like we mentioned, moving into new conferences. But I can't wait to watch the Utah duo for another season. Those guys are going to be so much fun to keep along with for another year. There we go. We're hitting come up on about an hour now. We're ran a little bit longer on this episode, but like I mentioned, we had an awesome guest today. Had 3 very, very different top 5s. A lot of fun debates and conversations because we saw this group very differently. All 3 of us did, but a lot of fun conversations. We all love watching offensive tackles. I'm excited to watch this group again come next spring. Really see how all these takes age, how all these guys are viewed, what the kind of development is over this next year. This is the fun of summer scouting. This is where it gets so much fun. I can't wait to see how these takes age. But yeah, that about does it for us. Parker, I'll let you go ahead and plug all your stuff for being a wonderful guest on here today.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity. It's always a blast to come on, especially talk offensive line. I love talking O-line play, especially with these tackles. I feel like tackles are so polarizing in the media scape nowadays, and so getting through and really talking about what some of these guys have and don't have, and how they compare, and how to put them side by side when they can be so vastly different as football players. But go follow me on X at ParkerBlake60. I put everything there. Everything that I'll ever post will go on there in some capacity. And then, like Drew said, we're starting the Substack at Scout the Shadows on Substack, and we're just going to be posting. I mean, I don't want to speak for Drew, but all I'm going to be throwing out there is just all my little write-ups on prospects as I get through them. I'm trying to go through this. I'm trying to be more meticulous with it. I got a little away from it there for a little bit, but as I watch a player, I'm just going to word vomit my thoughts on the guy. It's probably going to be around 300 to 400 words, not too long. But just my quick take on that guy's film from last season. So whatever player it might be, my board's currently approaching 40 full summer scouting grades, watched all their games and gotten through the tape. So you'll be able to see me again, just word vomit my thoughts. I'm literally watching the film. The film ends. I'm not even closing the window. I'm just opening up my docs and going to town. So I'll be posting those. I'm going to try and get 1 a day or 5 a week, probably closer to the second option, because 1 a day is just not how my brain works. But I'll probably get 5 on the same day and then hold off to the next week. But that's what's going on out there. And then we'll have some other content out there too. It's Scout the Shadows, because we're going to be covering Shadow Team stuff too. I know this is Drew's first year doing that, and so we'll be covering both of our teams, and feel free to follow along with him through his first year going through a full build. So it'll be fun time over there on the Substack. But then just go follow me on X, and you'll see everything that I'm doing. Feel free to subscribe on there too. I do post clips, so I try and allow my subscribers to watch along with me. So I'm trying to post little cut-ups of every player that I go through and watch. So you can also build your big board along with me and see where we're at. But thanks again for the opportunity to be on the show, guys. It was a blast chat about some of these prospects with y'all.
Absolutely. Appreciate you coming on. For sure, that's where a lot of my draft writing will go as well, because I'm doing a lot of my Titan stuff at Titan size, so my draft stuff will go on the Substack, but I'm super excited to get into that. I'll be doing prospect write-ups too. You can see how me and Parker, we have very different perspectives, but we end up kind of on the same on a lot of prospects, so it's really fun to see that. We appreciate you coming on. We'll be talking about the interior guys next week, so be sure to tune in to hear the rest of the O-line class. I'm really excited to jump into that. There's a lot of fun names there too. But yeah, that about does it for us, and we'll see you guys next week.